in central Nigeria, killing at least 115 people, with dozens still missing. Rescue teams continue to comb through rubble and riverbanks in Mokwa, a town in Niger State, after torrential rains swept through on Wednesday night. Emergency officials say more bodies are expected to be recovered as floodwater carries victims into the River Niger. Thousands have been displaced, including children from an Islamic school, while 2 bridges were destroyed. Survivors describe losing homes, families and all possessions, some escaping with only the clothes on their backs. The National Emergency Management Agency is calling it an unprecedented flood, blaming climate change, poor infrastructure and unplanned construction for the scale of the devastation. This is what some of the survivors have said.
We lost everything. The families, we don't even have anywhere again to go to. The property has gone. We lost at least 15 from this house.
Something too much. If I didn't lose any family, we are escaping. But my property, all they are missing. So we need to help the government to help us, because we didn't have anywhere to go now. Even today like this, I sleep inside garage. I don't get house to sleep because my house is already collapsed.
Well, joining us to discuss this devastating situation is Des Majek, an environment activist who's joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. Des, thank you ever so much for being here. Let's look at what might have caused this. We've just there detailed some of the potential reasons, global warming being one of them. How has global warming potentially triggered this devastating circumstance, which has led to dozens upon dozens of deaths?
Absolutely. Well, we here have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the global warming would have contributed towards it, because it is the most basic and fundamental of sciences that I personally learned as a 5 or 6 year old in my mother's kitchen. When she added heat to water, the water evaporated. More heat, more evaporation. Likewise, with the global warming scenario, we're adding heat to the oceans and the rivers and streams, more evaporation. So when you have more evaporated water in the sky as clouds, you're gonna have heavier rain. In fact, some people now classify it not as rainfall, but as rain bomb, because you have a massive amount of rain falling in a short period of time, which has the capacity to overwhelm natural and man-made amelioration measures. So global warming is the main cause of this type of catastrophic consequence that we're having, not just in Nigeria. I know they've had them in India, they're having them all over the world. It's a call, it's a call, it's a blowing of an alarm that humanity must come together and stop this massive destruction of nature, because nature is bound by fundamental rules and laws. What you give her, she gives you back. If you don't believe me, try planting a seed of corn and see whether you will be able to harvest rice from what you have sown into nature. And what humanity has sown into nature is going to cause a lot more of this very, very sad consequence.
Des, looking at the infrastructure in Nigeria, has this contributed to the death toll and the fact that heavy rainfall has led to such devastating circumstances for so many?
Yes, unfortunately, like in many other countries, we do not have adequate infrastructure to deal with heavy rainfall. And it's not as if we haven't had heavy rains. There'll always be heavy rains. But this type of heavy rainfall, where you have, because they measure it in Valencia, Spain, earlier, so some months back, they had 1.5 years rain fell in 8 hours, because it's so even the infrastructure that you normally have in place won't be adequate. But also, and this is also a big challenge, nature's infrastructure, because nature has ways of dealing with heavy rains. You have streams, you have rivers, you have ways of, just letting the water flow a lot more gently. But unfortunately, we have also uh, damaged that system by moving too much vegetation. So you have erosion on the banks, and then that erosion now silts up the streams and the rivers. So their capacity to even evacuate more water is limited. So natural infrastructure has been damaged, and the man-made infrastructure has not been adequate. It's an alarm call, and we need to hear it.
Yes, absolutely. Des, of course, this is early and we know emergency services are working on the ground, but given the geography, the closeness to the Niger River, do you think that this death toll could increase past 150 where it already stands?
Yes, unfortunately, tragically, and so sadly, the death toll is likely to increase because this flood came from a bit of a distance, and it's just so tragic. But even apart from the immediate death toll, a lot of people's lives have been so negatively impacted because their livelihoods, if they had farms, the farms have been washed away. If they had little businesses, those also have been destroyed. So the medium and long-term impact will also be quite severe on the people. And this is the time now for us as humanity to come together amongst ourselves and try to help each other. But mainly, the main thing is to ensure that we start living in harmony with nature. As we said earlier, nature, she gives you back. It's fundamental laws. It's there in every scripture. In the Bible, it's called retribution. In the Quran, it's called kifara. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's called karma. And these are fundamental laws. Give nature more care, more affection, and harmony. Live in harmony with nature, and we'll be fine. So it's a huge wake-up call for all of us. It's such a tragedy. Unfortunately and sadly, it's likely to happen again and again over the next few years, and it could get really, really, really bad if we don't take note and start reducing the massive pollution that we're pumping into the atmosphere that is causing this global warming, that is causing these terrible rain bombs. We have to change. We have to turn around and do the right thing in the right way.
Des, as we bring this discussion towards a close, is there something that the geopolitical community can do to support Nigeria against these deadly floods? And if not globally, is there something that within Africa the nations can do to support countries that are facing these difficulties, which are happening on a more frequent basis due to climate change?
This is an excellent question, and there are several things. One of them is that the African nations must come together. There needs to be a coming together of the various ethnic groups, the various nationalities, because even though we do have our differences in terms of ethnicity, differences in terms of religion, we have to remind ourselves that we're all in the same home. We're inhabiting this one planet Earth, and it's the only home that we have. And the differences we have are actually minimal compared to the likenesses that we have. So Africans need to really, really come together, especially as leading up to this COP conference, and other countries that are being negatively impacted, like parts of India and so on. We need to come together and demand for funding to be able to adapt to the problems, which a lot of us did not really contribute that much to. How much pollution is coming out of Africa, and even India for that matter. So we need to demand for funds so that we can adapt, but also to mitigate, because our populations are growing, and definitely we want to live a good life. We want to have electricity, we want to have the trappings of modern civilization. And as it stands now, if we're going to adopt the same systems that the industrialized Western nations have adopted, those things are going to require a lot of energy. So the energy can no longer come from dirty, poisonous sources. The energy has to come from clean sources. So that kind of mitigation is going to be a very expensive thing, but also for Africa, especially the tropical Africa, we have tremendous potential with our forests. And of course, that's nature's way of absorbing the CO2 that's always been given out, but never in this quantity. So we need to have a massive reforestation of the tropical forest belt and protecting our forests. But it's all a matter of coming together, knowing that we are each other's keepers. And if we give that goodness to each other, give that goodness to nature, it'll definitely come back to us.
Yes, Des Magic, thank you ever so much for joining us at this extremely difficult time.